Hey friends, today we're going to be playing around with some deck combos. I've been getting to know this deck. This is the Bohemian Gothic Tarot. This was a unicorn deck for me, and I had been waiting for a very long time for the opportunity to add it to my collection. And now I have it, and I've been working with it for the past week. And it's going so-so. That's what I'll say. It's going so-so. I did a reading with it, I think, on the night of the full moon. And I was like, okay, meh. So I wondered if this was the kind of deck that you could really just pull one card for instead of more in-depth readings. I'm not sure. If you have this deck and you have experience working with it, let me know how it's been for you. I really love the artwork on this deck. I did mention that shuffling this deck was a little wonky because the card stock feels a bit precious. I have found a way to work around that. Not a big fan of the cold foil stamping. I don't know what I was expecting. I had heard so many great things about Baba Studio decks and the quality, and this just feels like any other deck for me. So what I thought I would do today, because it's way too early to give up on it, right? And I'm mindful too, because with these decks, it's not like you work with them indefinitely, right? Like this deck for me is a deck that I work with in a particular season. So I don't feel like, oh, after spooky season, I probably wouldn't continue to work with this. I would continue to work with some of my other decks. So I do have what I feel like a limited amount of time left in this spooky season, and then I would probably put this away until next season. So what I thought I would do was kind of see if I have any Oracle decks in my collection that would play nice with this deck. And maybe that would help to kind of change the mood or the readings, or I don't know, something. So, anyways, that is what I was thinking for today. And I looked at a couple of decks this morning. I don't know, you're never going to believe what I came up with as a possibility for a pairing on this deck. um, let's see. So these are the backings. And I don't know, I gave it a quick look over, and it's not so much that the colors worked, although in many of the cases the colors did look good together. But in some cases, the keywords really went well with the cards. So we'll see. The deck that I have right here is the Soul Trees Ascension Deck. Now, this is a deck that has no people, mostly trees, but there are some cards where there aren't any trees. It's hard to describe. Energy? I'm not sure. So I'll set this aside and flip these over, and we can take a look. Okay, so immediately I look at these and I think, okay, wow, Ace of Swords, and then overthinking, right? Because if this is a deck that you would use in the darker months, right? For shadow work, then Ace of Swords may not necessarily be a positive message. It might can be that we are overthinking matters. In fact, when I read the guidebook on this card, it suggested that the sword kind of appeared to be there on its own. It was like it was placed there by some other being. So it was really interesting what they were going for when they designed this card. But I like these two keywords together. Okay. So these two, color wise, maybe no, but when you think about the Wheel of Fortune and you think about the meaning behind that card, right? Ever changing, the fact that we're in an ever changing state, and that's not anything that we can control, but what we can control is how we react to the changes and how being grounded could help us deal with the changes in a more positive way. So I really like that. Okay, the moon and momentum. Because the moon is about all the things that are kind of the dark, the mysterious, the things we fear, the things that are unknown to us, or the things that we worry about that seem worse than they are because of the darkness. And sometimes we might need a little bit of momentum to kind of, push through situations like this. And I like that because if you look over here, the wolf is howling, right? And it's a call. It's a call to his pack that there's something going on. And it could speak to that energy of momentum. Nine of Swords and connection. In terms of what are we connected to, what are we bound to, what are those thoughts that we are kind of letting ourselves be tied to, that we take with us into our period of rest when we're supposed to be letting things go, but we're not. It's almost like a connection should be like this: beautiful, intertwined, blooming, bringing about new and fresh ideas. It shouldn't be this chaos over here. So I like that message together. Again, like the colors don't work very well, but at the same time, like these deep purples are reflected here. Five of Wands and adapt. Consider a situation where you're in a Five of Wands moment. When is it appropriate? Because Five of Wands is fire energy. And for me, I envision a person that is in the thick of it and just rushes in without thinking it through and just letting their passions get the best of them, right? And maybe what this card is telling us in a more loving way is that sometimes we have to adapt a bit. Give your current situation a little bit of time to kind of see, and then make decisions on what you're going to do next, rather than just flying in gung ho and making a mess of things. I don't know. Like so far, again, like so far I feel like I don't know about the colors or even the design, but I like the keywords: Knight of Pentacles and align. The knight, the knight, this particular knight is the slowest of all the knights. He's methodical in a sense. He could almost be, I say he, but he or she can be a little bit boring, right? They just kind of go for things, slow and steady, right? And they do seem to be the type of person that is aligned to their goals and the end result. And that's the reason why they don't give up and they continue to persevere no matter what the situation is, whether or not you have a head on your shoulders. Oh my goodness. I love that this is the headless horseman. All right. Oh my gosh, I drew this card the other day in my reading, and it was the question was, how can you achieve more balance? And then it was super ironic that I got the Two of Pentacles, and I almost felt like she was a bit snarky. It seemed like she was like kind of smiling at me, like, haha, I got you. Balance, right? And I love that we're getting this card here because this card, this is the chakra system, and the chakras have to be in line in order for the energy to flow from one end to the other without any blockages, right? And that's how you keep things in balance. If it's not in balance, then energy gets stuck, and it depends on where that imbalance is or where the blockage is. That depends kind of like the outcome, right? So if your blockage is here in the root chakra, that's going to have a different effect than if your blockage is in the sacral or the heart space or even the throat chakra. So anything like that will cause an imbalance. And so I love these two together. Again, like the colors don't make any sense, but I do like these together. Oh, this is awesome. The Chariot and Dramatic Shift. No kidding. Ooh. Oh, the Hierophant and Shadow, right? Because this Hierophant looks sketchy. I don't know, like if I was in need of of spiritual guidance, of a teacher, of someone to kind of lead me on the right path, I don't know that I would go to this guy. He looks a bit sketch. And I think I've said this before. This guy reminds me of that teacher in the Harry Potter series. I don't trust him. I don't trust him, but that's the whole point, right, of the shadow card. And notice, like he's in an enclosure. If you look carefully here, there seems to be like a grate of some sort, and there's like a nun in the background. But he to me doesn't seem like someone that's open to listening to what you have to say. He almost seems like he's fed up with humanity, maybe. You know? Wow. Oh my gosh. Is this a pointed message to me? I've said before, I feel like the emperor is my card, right? And look at this. We have the emperor with liberation. Yeah, the emperor, this emperor just needs to just be free, separate from all the I often say that, right? Like the emperor brings out my best qualities, but also I feel like the emperor brings out my worst. So it's really important for me to balance this energy, because if not, I'll be sideways. I'll always be seeking liberation, because I am the type of person that feels like I need to stay within the confines of the box. I have to color inside the lines. It's very hard for me to color outside the lines. So, yeah, I'll take that. I'll take that. Mm, Five of Cups and Come Together. I like, even though this artwork is very different, like in these two cards in particular, it seems like some of the artwork is showing up, right? So, like these, white flowers on the trees, you can kind of see here. And then the color of her gown is kind of represented in the tree, and that Five of Cups moment where you really just need, you just need to get it together, like come back into focus, come back into alignment. If you do that, then maybe you wouldn't be ruminating so much. on what you don't have. Hmm. Ooh, Knight of Cups, breathe. I like these two together. I think that's a great message because the Knight of Cups, he has a certain personality, right? Like, he's not fast, but he's not slow. I see him as being maybe charismatic and charming and a little artistic, poetic, maybe. Um, and definitely the type of person that takes time to breathe through things. Not wild. Not wild like that darn Knight of Swords or the Knight of Wands. That's how I see him. Oh my gosh. Okay. Ace of Pentacles and natural rhythm. And I like that because the beginning, usually the Ace of Pentacles, a lot of times in different decks, is shown as a seed, right? A seed of intention, the way that something begins. And I feel like this speaks to, yes, to a natural rhythm, but I also see like the cyclical nature of things. There's a period for growth, but there's a period for harvest, and then there's a period for death, and then for, I don't know, I guess you would call it respawning, right? So everything has a natural rhythm, and you really have to understand where you are in the process of things. So I like that. Ooh, Nine of Wands and unity. So in any other deck, we would see the Nine of Wands with the nine wands behind him, giving that sense of unity. In fact, that's so funny. So let's see, one, two, three, four, five, six, seven. Well, there's not nine wands, but you kind of get the picture if this was behind. Both cards together would make the Nine of Wands. There is a sense of when you get to this point in the battle, there's a sense of unity with self. I feel like this is a crazy time, right? Because a lot of times by this point in the game, you might have already realized that this was the worst idea ever. But because of your passion and your drive, you're going to see it through all the way till the end, no matter what. So I feel like this speaks to that. Um, and that's not always a good thing, right? Because it's important for us to realize when is enough enough. At what point do you walk away? And it's okay to accept that even after the effort that's been put in up until a certain amount, no matter how long that period has been, it's okay to walk away from things and let it end. But a lot of times we don't do that. We're like, no, I'm fully invested and I need to see it through all the way to the end. Well, that's what you get. You get to stand alone on the battlefield. Mm. Mm. Making a mess. Okay. Three of Cups and imagination. Now, yes, again, the colors are not all that great together, but I do like these keywords with the cards. Having a sense of it. I mean, there's nothing more imaginative than what's going on in this card, right? Because this young lady here has been bitten by a vampire. So I'll bring her up close. I don't know if you could see on her neck, she has two bite marks. And so then you have these two youngsters. This one is holding a cup. I don't know. Is that blood? We don't know. Have they been converted into child vampires, or are they just kind of awaiting their fate? And sometimes situations like these seem fantastical, and your mind just kind of it kind of just runs away with you. It just, oh, it's hard. Ooh, Eight of Pentacles, be spontaneous. So this is interesting. Eight of Pentacles is that card, right? Of craftsmanship, of devoting time and energy into the practice of learning something new, a hobby, um, and continuing at it. And I always imagine this is not something that you just pick up overnight. It's something that you have to practice for a very long time. And so this is the doll maker in the background, and that's his shop, and she is walking away with his prized creation. And I don't think he knows how to feel about that. The child seems content, but then if you look at the doll looks freaked out. I don't know who's more freaked out, the toy maker or the doll. And so, because of the meaning, the significance behind this card and how slow this energy is, I feel like if someone is stuck in a rut and they could fall into these patterns where they're just working, 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 never taking time for self, never taking time for breaks or to do anything different, right? To feed their body, their mind, their soul, their spirit. And I think this is a reminder that sometimes you have to kind of take breaks and be spontaneous. So yeah, overall, I really like these together. And again, it's not the colors, and I do kind of like it. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of like it when decks are matchy matchy. But in this case, they're not matchy matchy, but the key words, they go well together. And I like that this is a deck with people and this has no people, so it gives you a different way to look at things. I feel like this here, Soul Trees, um it's more than just trees. I feel like it's a deck about energies, right? So I like that, the Fool, and having awareness, right? Thinking a little bit before. There's a difference between taking a risk and a calculated risk, right? Um, a guesstimate. There's a difference between randomly picking A, B, C, or D, or um, taking a guesstimate. And I feel like that's what this is speaking to. Having, taking a moment. It's kind of interesting because this is really, really dark and this is really, really light. And I feel like the sun energy here is opposing that moon energy there. The blues are on the outside. So, yeah, having some awareness before you go and leap off the edge. Ooh, oh my gosh, this is so good, right? The tower and ascension. Because sometimes you need that tower moment. Sometimes you need that moment for things to come crashing down. And in that moment, you don't understand why it's happening and what you're ever going to do and how you're going to overcome it. But over time, you'll realize that it's the step in the right direction. It's something that needed to happen in order for you to progress and kind of like hit that next level and become to help you become the best version of you, right? Everybody needs that. You can't just kind of flow gracefully from one end of the scale to the other and be like, okay, yay, I made it. That's not how it works. That's not how it works. So, you need these tower moments in order to help you get to that next step. I feel like I could do this for a while. So that gives me a good idea that these two decks are decks that I could possibly use together. So maybe instead of like, doing multiple drawings from this deck, like for card spreads, maybe it would be better to use this, um, combined with an oracle. Because look, the artwork on these two actually look really good together. And that's the thing, on a lot of these cards, the artwork looks nice together. Not all of them, but on some of them, but the keywords work, right? So here, Eight of Wands, this is like, it's interesting because this is usually the card of, about fast moving energy, maybe travel, maybe something coming at it, maybe you having to get ready quick for the next step in the evolution. And then here, this message, that if you use this energy to your advantage, your dreams could be on the verge of, coming true. And look at how the light is on right from the inside of the trunk of that tree. Yeah, these two work really well. Ah, Page of Pentacles and sweetness. Although there's nothing sweet about this child here holding those funeral flowers. But usually that page, right, that's new energy, that's something new, something exciting. It's that childlike behavior that we express right before we tackle something new, whether it be, career or finance or something in your home. um, and the sweetness of it all. Of course, this is the shadow. That child is creepy. I'm sorry, that child is creepy. You. Okay. This card, Seven of Wands, right? I feel like this card really conveys the energy behind the Seven of Wands. And it's interesting that this was the creature that was selected, because sometimes you want to put yourself in the place, right, in that place and imagine yourself, but it's hard to look at the card and be like, oh, I'm that demon. And are these people trying to keep the demon in, or is the demon trying to get out, or what is happening here? And that idea of conception, right? This is a critical moment. This is a moment where you get to decide. I feel like, are you going to be combative and try to ward off all of the negative energy that is coming at you at once? Or are you going to take a moment to do something a little bit different and maybe ground yourself, maybe take some time to breathe, maybe take some time to meditate, and choose your battles wisely? I always think about that when I see this card, because this feels like craziness, and it doesn't seem like it would end well for that creature. This is the time for the person in this position to really um you know dream up a new approach, because there's always a way. Where there's a will, there's a way. Yeah. Anyways, I feel like these two decks could potentially work together. I was getting a little nervous because, like I said, I did a reading with the deck and it just seemed like, okay, nothing, nothing special. But, they say this all the time. When you're working with tarot, it is important, to take the proper steps, right? To ground yourself, take a deep breath, to reflect, to center yourself and focus on the question at hand. Because if you're tired, if your heart's not in it, if you're not all there, of course, when you pull cards, they're not going to make sense. And that happens a lot. As a matter of fact, I'm thinking back on that night of the full moon. I was trying to do so many things. I was working on my channel and I was doing some editing and working on a thumbnail and running outside, charging the camera, running outside so I can try to get a picture of the full moon. And I remember my daughter asking, "Are you going to bed soon?" "Oh no, I still have to draw cards." I still have to draw cards because it's a full moon in Aries and I'm in Aries, and I feel like it could be a very um, strong message for me. But it doesn't really make a difference if you're too tired to pull the cards, because then what happens? You're just pulling random cards. Anybody could do that. Anybody could shuffle a deck, pull three cards, and call it a day, right? The important thing is to connect with, and it depends how you do it, right? It could be that you connect with your spirit team, with your guides, with your intuition, whatever the case is. Everybody has a process that they go through in order to prepare themselves to receive that guidance. And if you don't do that, then it's possible that you can pull cards and end up asking yourself, what does this mean? This isn't about me. Is this a reading for the collective? Like, what does this have to do? And so I remember that night I pulled cards. In fact, for one of my questions, I ended up pulling three cards. I'm not sure what propelled me to do that. And then, of course, the cards didn't make any sense to me. And so I set them aside. I left them overnight, and then the next day I came back and I attempted to sit and journal through them, but it wasn't the same. And I'm starting to feel like the more I verbally share my readings, whether it be voice recording them into my electronic journal or recording them for a YouTube video, the better I get at articulating and tapping into that intuition. So I feel like exercises like this, where you take two decks and you pair them up and you kind of go through them just to kind of see what comes through, I find it to be very helpful. I find it to be very, very helpful in terms of building your intuition and helping you work through your thoughts in a more organized way. Um, so yeah, I've been trying to do a little bit more of that with my decks in the evenings, right? I want to be very mindful. So some days I have very heavy days at work and I just can't, I'm completely done. So on that day I'll work on something that requires little to no energy. But if I have good energy at the end of the day, then it's the perfect time to play with decks. And in a way, it's like exercising your intuition. It's a great way to practice. And if you're a person that is new to tarot, or a person who has taken a break for a while and come back, it's a great way to help you kind of flex those muscles, right? So, yeah, so that's what I have. Really, I just wanted to play around with my decks, and I thought I would bring you on the journey. I've just combined my Bohemian Gothic Tarot with my Soul Trees Ascension Deck. And I think that this quite possibly would be something that I could see myself doing again. So let me know if you have this deck. Do you pair it with anything else? Do you do multiple card readings? Do you just pull one card? And if you match it with another deck, what do you match it with? I'd be curious to hear. Let me know in the comments. Thank you so, so much, and I hope you have a great day.